I have to? Can I not just skip it and move on? Fine, let's get it over with. Hello everyone, welcome back to Cynical... wrong one, sorry. Hello, welcome back to Animation Station, your number one stop destination for anything and everything animation. And welcome to the worst Spider-Man movie ever made. I have been mostly positive through this retrospective review series that we have done so far. I adore the first one. I think that the second one's a masterpiece. I really enjoyed the third one, and I found myself really liking the first Amazing Spider-Man. And spoiler alert, I love and adore the MCU trilogy, so... This is the only time in this retrospective that you're going to be seeing me be negative. Because, this is not just a bad movie. This movie is just flat out awful. Like, goodness gracious, is this movie terrible. Like, it has really good things in it, which we're going to talk about first, but I have so many things that I need to complain about, so buckle up and just, strap yourself in. This is not going to be a fun video. Let's start with the good stuff, because there is definitely some. Andrew Garfield's still a great Spider-Man. The spider suit, while I still prefer the first one personally, is still really good. The acting with Andrew Garfield is still really good. Some of the characters that come back from the original are still really good, like, Gwen Stacy, played by Emma Stone, and Sally Fielding's Aunt May. Like, they're all really good. And I especially really love the scenes with Spider-Man and the little kid. Like, those are the emotional heartbeat of the movie. Like, those scenes are just so good. Like, when he's impressed by the wind turbine, and he really embraces that, about standing up for the little guy, pretty much, as Ant-Man would say. Like, those scenes are really nice. The scene where he's helping a kid when he's getting bullied, when he compliments him for his wind turbine, he walks him home, which is just sweet. And the ending, as stupid as it is, where the kid tries to stand up to Rhino, and then the real Spider-Man returns. Like, it's all really good. Like, those scenes are really good and really great. I love those scenes. I love the scenes with Andrew and Emma. I love those scenes. I love the romance, which is actually pretty well done. And the directing from Mark Webb is still decent. And then the biggest pro of this entire movie, as brief as they are, the swinging scenes, where it really does feel like you're swinging through the air as Spider-Man. Like, those scenes are fantastic. Like, those scenes are great. And that's where the positives stop. You have a good romance, good performances from the main two leads. You have a great swing scene, really good costume design for Spider-Man specifically. And the scenes with the kid. That's it. Now let's dive into every single way this movie decided to head dive first off a cliff. Like, oh man. Where do I start? Let's start with the two elephants in the room. Jamie Foxx's Electro and Dane DeHaan's Green Goblin. Let's do Electro first. I don't think his design is that bad. Like, having him blue with the bright blue irises with a whole black pupil. Like, I like the design enough, it's fine. But then later on they give him a suit, and the suit is absolute abysmal garbage. To quote Nostalgia Critic, you look like the Fantastic Four member they hide behind Thing. Like, it is a weak suit, it is a terrible suit, and it's a garbage suit. Then there's Dane DeHaan's Green Goblin / Harry Osborn. He's awful in this. His acting is abysmal. The Green Goblin design is god awful. Like, whoever came up with that design needs to be fired. And the way that Green Goblin doesn't come in until the very end of the movie, just to do that famous scene from the comic books, no. That is horrible. And then you have Paul Giamatti's Rhino, because we don't have enough villains in this movie, apparently. And he's also awful. Like, he doesn't act like Rhino, he doesn't look like Rhino, he doesn't feel like Rhino. He just acts like he walked on set drunk off his rear end and just said a bunch of random gibberish. Like, no. And then the final fight scene with Electro was trash. Felicia Hardy's cat, Black Cat, is pretty much entirely pointless, even though she doesn't become Black Cat. But we all know who Felicia Hardy is. We're not stupid. And then we get yet another villain introduced with some random old asshole in a suit taking over Oscorp and trying to kick out Harry Osborn. That was stupid. And then let's get to the movie's biggest problem, the writing. The writing in this movie is trash. Like, it's bad. It is written by the same douchebags that wrote the awful Transformers films. Yes, the same ones. Oh, and that's not the only movie they did. No. Because you know what they did after this? The Mummy 2017. Yeah. Pretty much the Ken Pontac and Griff of the Hollywood world. Their writing is awful. They absolutely have no idea what they're doing. And they rely on the cheapest jokes possible. Like, outside of Peter and Gwen's relationship, all the other writing in this movie is awful. From the forced spy crap, to the many villains that don't need to be here, to the way everything plays out in the end. And I know everyone's going to say, okay, but one positive, there's this scene where Gwen Stacy dies, replicated from the comics. That's something. No. That scene feels empty, because it's not earned by the rest of the movie. It just seems like a movie scene they threw in there just for nostalgia baitum. This movie was supposed to be trying to start a cinematic universe. But Sony didn't learn their lesson from Spider-Man 3 and just jammed in as much stupid crap as possible. It is pathetically bad. Like, ugh. And then, the way the movie ends, yes, the scene with the kid is nice, I'll give it that. But then, we don't get to see him fight the actual Rhino in the Rhino suit, which, by the way, the Rhino suit sucks, too. Like, trash suit. And then the fights, oh man, some of the fights are okay, like the one scene with Spidey and Electro in the middle of Times Square, that fight's okay, I can give that one a pass. But the fight with Green Goblin's awful, the final battle with Electro is awful, the fight with Rhino just doesn't even happen in the movie. And then you throw in the spy stuff and trying to jam in so many things as possible just so you can focus on getting more movies off the ground rather than make a good movie that stands on its own. That's what Amazing Spider-Man 2 is. It is a miserable, cluttered, broken failure. And you may be sitting there like, oh, well, it has some redeeming aspects, doesn't it? Yes, but there's one problem. The more you watch the movie, the more those good scenes are completely squandered and buried under all the awful, awful trash. Amazing Spider-Man 2 is awful. Oh, and let's not forget, it also has an awful video game to go with it. Let's not forget that, shall we? Let's talk about that for a bit, because I'm done talking about the trash movie. I'm done. The game sucks just as hard, if not even harder. I mean, okay, not as hard, because they do try to put some unique stuff in there, like having Craven try to be like an old retired mentor to Spider-Man, to Peter Parker specifically. Like, their interactions in the game are great. The problem is the gameplay sucks, the rest of the story sucks, the graphics suck, the combat sucks, the swinging sucks, and it's a broken, buggy, glitchy mess. If we were rating the video game, it would get a 3 out of 10. But we're only rating the movie here. And this movie is terrible. It's just as awful as you've heard, if not more so. It remains Spidey's absolute bottom of the barrel with live action movies. Or movies in general. Heck, as much as Spider-Man 3 dropped the ball, it was still at least an entertaining movie. This has a few little good scenes here and there, and then the rest of it is just abysmal trash that is a pain to sit through, and it's just a movie made by corporate that haven't learned their freaking lesson. They tried to focus too much on making spin-offs in other movies rather than focus on making this one a good movie on its own. And when you do that for any franchise, you immediately faceplant. When you do that for any franchise, you immediately head dive first off a cliff. Like, this movie sucks, man. It sucks. It is such a bad piece of crap. And look, it has its fans, I know, and if you're one of those people that somehow like this movie, that's fine. I'm glad you're able to enjoy something that I just can't bring myself to enjoy. Okay? You're allowed your opinion, as long as you don't try to disrespect my opinion. Well, you can disrespect it, just, don't be disrespectful. You know what I mean. Don't be an a-hole in the comment section. But even for webheads, this is not worth it. Awful writing, awful villains, awful designs, abysmally horrible pacing, way too friggin' long, and only a few good scenes here and there that are scars and barely worth mentioning on top of this awful, awful garbage. I'm not wasting any more of my time talking about this trash, because this one doesn't even deserve a 20-minute plus review, because it's a piece of crap. We all know it's a piece of crap, and just throw it away. Throw it away and bury it. And I feel bad for Andrew Garfield that he has to end his tenure as Spider-Man with such an awful, awful piece of crap. Because I love Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. He's definitely more comic accurate. The way he's both caring while also not forgetting to be a hero and being quippy. But this movie just completely screwed the pooch for everybody. And it's the movie that finally convinced Sony to just hand the rights over to the MCU, because they clearly can't do anything right anymore. Unless you're Spider-Verse, but that won't come out for another, 4 or 5 years after this disaster? So, yeah, this movie is an abysmal garbage pile mess, and even if you're a webhead, don't bother watching it. Just watch the first Amazing Spider-Man and pretend this god-awful crap doesn't exist. Watch the few scenes that I've mentioned on YouTube by itself, and don't watch the rest of the movie. It's not worth your time. It is an abysmal dumpster fire that needs to just be buried or incinerated with a flamethrower. Final verdict for Amazing Spider-Man 2. I'm bouncing between a 2 and a 3 here because I want to give credit for some of those scenes, but it's just so much awful, abysmal garbage, I can't justify it. Okay. It's a 2. It's a 2 out of 10. An abysmal dumpster fire. Even if you're the most die-hard webhead imaginable, this crap is not worth your time. And sure, maybe it looks a little bit in retrospect because of No Way Home continuing the story of Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man after Gwen Stacy's death, and Jamie Foxx's Electro, who does get a nice redemption. And maybe Lizard, but he's barely in the movie, so it doesn't matter. But even with that retrospective, it still sucks. It's still a terrible movie on its own. And it's still one of the most prime examples of how not to start your cinematic universe. Instead of trying to jam everything into one movie, space it out. If you want to make a cinematic universe, space it out between other films. That's why the MCU works so well in this first phase when it was setting everything up. Because you had a great Iron Man movie, a really good Incredible Hulk movie, even though it ended up being retconned, but whatever. You had a solid Thor movie. You had an excellent Captain America movie. You had a decent second Iron Man sequel. And then it all led up to a masterpiece that was Avengers. You see my point here? Space it out. If you space it out between multiple movies instead of trying to jam everything into one, you can have that cinematic universe. But apparently Sony were just too stupid to get that through their skulls, because instead they just shove everything in, and look at the result. The only Spider-Man movie to have a rotten score, the only Spider-Man movie I will say that I outright freaking hate, and the only Spider-Man movie that I will never watch again. Because as good as some of those scenes are, the rest of it does not justify watching the rest of this awful crap. So, yep, that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. I'm glad I never have to talk about and or watch this piece of crap ever again. And I'll see you guys next time for much more positive ventures once again, because we're going to talk about the MCU Spider-Man trilogy next. So, join me next time for the excellent reset that was Spider-Man Homecoming.